So, you've got your first guitar. Could be a Stratocaster of some sort. A lot of people start off with some sort of Strat copy, be it Encore or be it one of the other ranges. Oh, what are they called now? I can't remember the name of them. Squire, whether it be a Squire Stratocaster, or it could be you have something like a Les Paul or an acoustic. Who knows? Who cares? But so you got your new guitar and you're all ready to get playing, you're all ready to be your guitar hero and learn all there is to know about it. But you look at it and you think, what does this do? What's this for? Switches, knobs, funny turny things. What are these bits? Confusing. Now, acoustic guitar, people start with acoustic, it's a lot simpler of course, because you kind of have strings, you have a fretboard, and then you have a sound hole. And that's kind of it, unless it's an electroacoustic. The electrics, they can get a lot more complicated. So, as an introduction, for the complete and absolute beginner, before you even learn to play anything, it's really, really important that you learn what the bits of the guitar actually are. So, I'm going to take you through from the headstock to the body. So starting at the top, this part here is called the headstock, and the headstock is part of the neck. This bit here is the neck, you can see, and some necks, like on this Fender Stratocaster, are bolt-on necks, which means, in other words, that it's a separate piece of wood from the body and it's been bolted on. Others are neck throughs, where it's been set in and glued in, and others are fixed in by other locked joint methods, so it's more of a one piece. And what the difference in that really means is that with a bolt-on you can change the necks, so if that neck gets damaged, or if you decide you don't like the neck and you want a different neck on, you can always change it. But with a set neck, it's there, it's part of the guitar, you can never change it, which obviously has that disadvantage, but the advantage is that it does have a bit more sustain because there's a bit more joint upness with the body. It tends to give a bit of a richer tone and sustain on longer notes. So, and headstock, what is the headstock for? Well, it has these things here, which are either called tuning keys or machine heads. And these basically, if you can see it on the back here, they have little gears in them with different ratios, and as you turn these, it turns these parts here, go right up close there, which in turn tightens or loosens the string. And that's important because you use that not only to wind the strings on, but to tune them. As you can see. So that's the tuning keys or the machine heads on the headstock. And the headstock, they come in all sorts of different designs. This one is a typical Stratocaster one. You'll find some more like Les Paul style, where they have 3 on one side and 3 on the other. Some reverse headstocks where the tuning keys are on the bottom. There's a whole load of different designs of those. So next, moving on, we have the neck, and that's this piece of wood here. And this is important because it comes in all sorts of different shapes and sizes, and it's important when you choose your first guitar that you spend a lot of time in a guitar shop trying as many ones that you can, even if you cannot play anything. It doesn't matter, just pick them up and feel them. Feel the ones that are in your price range, you know, just do that, have a feel up around the neck, see how it feels in your hands. If it doesn't feel comfortable, then it's really never going to feel comfortable. So it has to feel comfortable in your hands. So yet again, like I said, they come in all different profiles and shapes, of C shapes and D shapes, and flatter ones and rounder ones, and all sorts. And they're also made out of all sorts of different woods. I can't remember exactly what wood is on this one, but you can see this one here is a stripe up the middle, which is called a Bubinga strike, which means it's a piece of Bubinga wood which is very, very strong, that's been added in there to give some rigidity to it. One other little thing that's on the headstock that you might notice is this little hole here, and quite often you'll see on guitars that they actually have a little hatch there, a little sort of it's like a little door, so I call it the elf door, and that's because inside this piece of wood is a rod called a truss rod, and that is because wood by its very nature bends. If you look at an old house that's hundreds of years old, you'll see that it bends and goes in and out of shape. You'll see never the floors straight. An old house always has wobbly floors, wobbly ceilings, wobbly walls, crookedness, and that's because wood warps. It changes with the heat and the cold, with the weather conditions. And a guitar maker is no different from that. It will do that. It will bend one way or the other. Now, of course, it's very important that you keep it at the optimal sort of level where you're going to get the best sound and best playability out of it. So what the truss rod really allows you to do is to simply bend it backwards or forwards as needed to make it the best playability as possible. But I would highly recommend that anyone who's a beginner of any tool does not touch a truss rod, as you can go seriously wrong with it. Leave it to a guitar tech. So, moving on, the next bit on the fretboard is this piece here. It's the actual fretboard itself on the neck. Sorry, the next piece on the neck is a fretboard. Now, the fretboard is commonly another piece of wood which is put on the front of the neck, and this is where you're actually going to play on. Now, you can see these different pieces of metal here going along. I'll just do a close up there so you can see really, really closely. These are called the frets, and these allow you to pick different positions. As you see, make different notes. So from each one of these on the neck, a different note can be struck. It's a bit like the keys on a piano. So we have some different woods on here. This one here is a very, very common one for acoustic and electric guitars. It's called rosewood, and you'll see that on hundreds and hundreds of different guitars. It's a very good quality wood, very playable, very, very nice tone. You also get we see very, very bright coloured ones, which are normally maple, and if you see a really dark fretboard, that's normally ebony, and they're a bit rare. You normally find them on the more high-end guitars. So of course you then have, just to confuse you, different types of neck length, different what they call scale length, and this basically means how wide distances between each of these frets, and also how many frets you have on, and that can be anything from 21, well actually even less on an acoustic, but normally on electric sort of 21, 22 up to 24, up to seriously silly kind of 30 fret jobbies by Ibanez, but the common is either a 22 or 24. Just to make something that's blindingly obvious to most guitar players, but not to people who are new on guitar, it certainly wasn't when I first started years ago, is you see this end of the fretboard here where you see most of the rhythm work going on, where the chords are being played, and this end tends to be where you see on various videos, MTV, Slash doing these solos up here, playing lots of licks and leads, and it can be quite daunting, that area of the neck of the fretboard, and it can be, you know, that's obviously set aside for serious players and this end's set aside for the beginner, but that's not actually the case. It's actually very, very simple. All you have to remember is you got up to 12 frets, and the 12th fret is always designated by the double dot, which is normally, by the way, as well as the fret markers on the board, you normally have some on the top here, and you might not be able to see these on the camera, possibly not picking them up. You probably can just there. You'll see where my finger is, 2 dots, and that is the 12th fret, and everything from there is basically a copy of here. So if I was to play the 3rd fret of the E string here, it'll be exactly the same, but up an octave. There. So it's exactly the same. So that makes it a lot simpler, because you're not thinking, oh my god, you know, what's this area for? This is for super fast, you know, Malmsteen, you know, shredders. It's actually just exactly the same as that into the fretboard, and you can transpose anything you learn up here, other chords really, up here. Well, you still can do some chords if you like. So that's the whole neck. Next we're on to the body, and the body is the main part of the guitar. This is the main thing that makes a lot of the tone of the guitar, if you like. So these can be made out of a whole load of different woods, from basswood to mahogany to swamp ash. The list just goes on and on and on. And don't let anyone who says, oh, the woods don't matter, that's not true. Everything matters on a guitar, and you can change one component and it can change the sound completely. So, and on the electric, it's not just about the electrics, it is about the woods. The woods do make a big difference. So I'm not sure what wood this is on this particular one, but normally you have a solid wood, and it's laminated to some degree, and you have, you know, another top wood put on with whatever finish you have, whether it be plain wood finish, whether it be, it's known as a common sunburst there. There's a sort of tobacco burst on that one. Obviously, you see that one's got a red kind of finish, and plain white over on that Les Paul over there. There's a whole load of others, which you will see as time goes on. So it's important, yeah, again, what wood you get if you're a beginner, but I wouldn't worry too much if you're just starting off, as long as it feels right. As I said, as long as you feel comfortable, as long as you like the look of it, because if you don't like the look of it, then you won't want to play it. So as long as it feels good, looks good, plays good, that's the main things. So then, what's all these bits for? This is where it all gets a little bit complicated, isn't it? So, you know, you've got these bits here, switches down here, goes up and down. You've got knobs here, and this funny lever on a Stratocaster type. So the next bits are, really most important next bit is what's known as the bridge. And the bridge is really where your strings sit from the other end. This is where they're locked to this end, and you can tighten and loosen them from the neck end, and you'll get all sorts of different types of bridge. And again, on a Les Paul you might have a fixed bridge, which is a solid piece which doesn't move at all. You might have a through body, so the strings actually go through the body of the guitar and lock them that way. This one has what's called a standard tremolo system. Banging against the wall there. This is a standard tremolo system, standard Fender tremolo system, and tremolo is simply something where it bends the strings up and down, and so you can get a particular type of tone. Now, certainly, if you're starting off as a guitarist, you're probably not going to want to muck about that too much, because it can make the guitar go out of tune quite a lot. So if you're starting off and you have got a Stratocaster copy, my advice is to simply not use it too much. Take the take that out, the arm out, until you get used to it. Another type you will find is called a Floyd Rose or locking tremolo, which again is a tremolo like this but much more complicated, and that locks at both ends and it has fine tuners here, but it's a nightmare to set up. When they're set up they are fantastic and they're used a lot in heavy metal. I would suggest if you're starting off, even up to not really until you're kind of up to an intermediate level, would I suggest you play with one of those. So remember, avoid the Floyd. Now on these, just to tell you a little bit more about the different types of bridges, is that there are fine adjusters on all of these, and what these can do, they can heighten the level of the bridge. So if you just look there, you can see, I hold it kind of flat onto the camera, and you'll see how high the strings are, not only from the body but also from, if I can bring up really close, how high they are from the fretboard. And you can adjust these strings up and down, and this will help you get in the right playability. Some people prefer a what's called a high action, which means that the strings are quite far away from the fretboard, and others prefer a low action. I prefer a lowish action. That's just the way I like to play and I like it. I would suggest starting off, you start somewhere in the middle. A kind of low mid action is your best bet. If you've got a very high action starting off, it's going to make it very, very difficult for you to learn to play. Very difficult, because you'll be forever trying to push down these strings which are miles from the fretboard, and it'll be almost impossible to learn good playing that way. Now the next bit of importance, really, because these are really major parts that make up some of the sound of an electric guitar, are these bits here, and these are known as pickups, and they are basically magnetic coils, and what they do is they pick up the vibrations of the strings, and through various circuitry they transform that into an electronic signal, which is then sent to the amplifier, which then converts it through, whether it's valve amp or whether it's transistor amp, through various methods back into sound and tone of the guitar. There are two main types of pickup which you will find, and this one has both handily. There are single coils, which are these thinner ones here, and there are humbuckers, which are these ones here. And so what's the difference, I hear you say? Well, the difference is in the tone and the character. Neither is better than the other really, although some are used for one type of music more than the other. So for example, humbuckers are much more prevalent in heavy metal or heavy rock, although you do find some single coils being used by people like Malmsteen or Richie Blackmore to fantastic usage. Single coils you tend to find much more in the sort of pop to rock sort of genres, but yet again, it transfers over, and there's no real thing that says you've got this type of guitar or this type of pickup, so you must play this type of music. That's complete rubbish. You can play whatever kind of music on whatever type of guitar, whatever type of amp, whatever effects, whatever you want to do. There's no rules. So these pickups, the main difference is in the tonal character, as I said. So one thing you'll find with the single coils is they do tend to be a little bit thinner. I'll just put a little bit of volume on here. If I just hop to the humbucker, which is at the bridge, you can tell straight away it's a bit hotter. There's a little bit more. I haven't adjusted any volumes at all, but there's a bit more gain on that. That's a real difference, and also one of the main reasons they're called a humbucker is because single coils can hum a lot, especially when you've got a lot of gain on them. You can't really hear it here, but if you're switching on there, there's a lot of, you get some cycle, it's called cycle hum, and humbuckers eliminate that generally, which is why they're called humbuckers. They buck the hum. Again, neither is better than the other. I tend to have a lot of humbuckers in my guitars because of the music I mainly play, which is bluesy rock metal. But yet again, I still love single coil. It has some really, really lovely tones you can get out, particularly for clean tones and slightly crunchy tones. It can't really be beat. And often a humbucker will be just too much in your face, and because the humbuckers tend to have more output than the single coils. So now that you understand that there are different pickups and there's different configurations, you might have a single or SSS configuration. You might have a humbucker single or a HSS, or you might have a humbucker, which is another humbucker there, or you might have a humbucker single humbucker, and those are the main configurations of what you find. Now, so you've got these different pickups. How do you activate them? How do you use them? Well, that's where this little switch comes in handy, because it's known as the pickup selector. Now, yet again, these come in really two different types on a guitar. On an electric guitar, there's 5-way and the 3-way. The 3-way only has 3 selections, as its name implies. So you would have the bridge pickup, number 1. Number 2 would be the mid pickup, and number 3 would be the neck pickup, which is the one closest to the neck. Now, what happened in the 60s was guitarists like Jimi Hendrix, who were really exploring different tones and how to make different sounds. What they tended to do, they found that if they stuffed a toothpick in the 3-way selector on a Stratocaster, and they could jam it between the 1 and 2 selection, they could get a different tone. They could get something that was new and hadn't been heard before. So after a while, I believe Leo Fender decided this idea had caught on, and so they invented the 5-way switch, which gave a lot more options, because you then had the option of the bridge pickup, number 2, that part of the bridge pickup, and the middle and that, and the neck, and just the neck. So you had 5 more choices. Yet again, neither one's better than the other. Les Pauls tend to have 3 ways, and Stratocasters tend to often have the 5-way selectors. So, by the way, Les Pauls and Stratocasters tend to be the 2 main types of guitars that you find around. And if you're into heavy metal, what you'll often find is what they call a super Strat, or there's lots of different makes of those, Ibanezes and LTDs and Schecters, like this one up here, and a lot of those have humbucker or humbucker single humbucker configurations. So that's for selecting the different types, and with this sort of give you a bit more tone again, a bit more noise. You can just hear that. I'll change it up one. Third position, 4th, and the neck tends to be the deepest one, and it tends to be it tends to have the least gain on it. The middle, it tends to be kind of a more higher one, I always find on a 5-way selector, and then the bridge always tends to be the more full-on out. So you can hear there, back to the neck, so there's not so much gain, and it's high pitched and more gain. Gain, by the way, I always just say this, I will do an introduction to amps as well soon and take you through amps, but it's important to know there are two different things in amps. There is volume and then there is gain, and although gain does turn up the volume, it does a different thing as well. It makes the sound a bit more crunchy, breaks it up, so it goes from a cleaner tone, and the more gain you would add would go up to see that broken up, distorted rock sound. So then we have some knobs down here, some knobbly knobs, and those are generally volume, so you can change the volume on the guitar. So at the moment, as you can see, no volume. As I turn it, so if I give it the tone controls allow you to basically change the tone, so from a kind of bright output to a lower output. And where that really comes in handy is when you've got used to guitar and you're playing your first few licks and stuff like that. Sometimes you might find that, oh, that sounds a little bit too harsh, it's a little bit too crackly or a bit too sharp on my ears. So what you might then do, you might just take that tone down a little bit. You see, it just takes that edge off, and the same with the volume. You know, you might decide that at full volume from the guitar, now you might just say, why not turn the amp down, but you don't always want to keep going back to the amp, turning up and down, up and down, up and down, so you can easily do it from the guitar itself, and it also allows you to get different tonal character out. So at full volume you might be like, you might think, oh, it's nice, but it's a bit too full on for this particular part, and so you might dial it down a bit. And you see you've just took it down a level and made it a little bit less harsh. And yet again, you know, another part you might decide, well, this bit needs to be rocking now. This needs to be kicking butt. So, the only other piece I need to really show you is this bit here, which is the jacking point. And yet again, they're in different places. This one's on the front, on Stratocasters quite often, on Les Pauls tends to be on the bottom. And they're basically just where you plug jack of the guitar in. Now, sometimes if you've picked yourself up a second-hand guitar, you might find you get this noise. Don't worry, it's not actually something really, really badly wrong in the guitar. It's simply that the connection to the lead plug is not quite tight enough, because it's been knocked back a lot. So with a lot of them it's very, very easy. You can just undo it and bend a piece of metal back. Some other styles are more difficult and you might have to get the whole jack in point replaced, but it's not a great cost and it's not a major problem. It can easily be resolved, and you'll have a crackle free guitar. Now, just to show you one thing on the back, any guitar with a tremolo will generally have a plate on the back, unless it's been removed, and inside that you'll see some screws and you'll see a piece of metal, and that's because that's how the tremolo works. It's suspended by various springs that give it the tension so that it can do the up and down motion of the tremolo arm. 1950s sci-fi. Anyway, so that's all of the parts of an electric guitar, and yet again, like I said, it's important that you know all of these parts, because you get familiar with them and understand what they all do. You know, play around with the tuning, retune your guitar. You know, play around with volume settings, play around with tone settings. Just get used to it. Get the feel of the guitar in your hands. And if you haven't bought your guitar yet and you're thinking about going out and buying it, like I say, go to a guitar store. Don't be pushed into buying something which you're really not sure about. You know, ask to. It doesn't matter if you don't know how to play. It really doesn't matter. You know, I mean, you can bar a chord. You can take one finger, just one little finger like that, and you can put it like that on any of these frets, and you can just go. You can do it anywhere up the fretboard. You can just go, or you can just go. In fact, if you put it down one string, so it's not touching that top string and it's just touching those two strings there, then you can play a barred E minor. And you sounds like you really know how to play then. And that will just give you an idea of how it feels. You know, like I said, don't worry too much about what they think and what anyone else. You know, there might be some other players sitting in the shop playing out little hearts out, doing all their favourite little licks, trying to show off. You know, ignore them. It doesn't matter. They don't matter. You matter, and your guitar matters. So make sure you try all the ones in your price range that you really like the look of and you really think could suit you. See how they feel, see how it feels, see how this feels next to you. Don't be afraid to put a strap on it and you know, stand in front, ask if they got a mirror, see what it looks like, you know, why not? It's got to be aesthetically pleasing to you. You've got to want and desire the guitar, otherwise you're never going to pick it up and learn it. If it's something that somebody's said, oh, you should get this one because, you know, this is the one you should have to start with, then, and if you don't like the style of it, you don't like the colour of it, you're not going to want to pick it up. So it's got to be something that you naturally love from day one. Now that's really the thing I'm going to tell you about the parts of guitar. So here ended the first video, and my next video will be an introduction to amplifiers, and from there we're going to go on to some lessons, and they are going to be really simple lessons, so you can really get started. And I know there's a million and other one guitar lessons on YouTube. They're all absolutely brilliant, but these ones I think I'm going to aim them so that you can really just pick out something very simple and just make a tune for yourself, and more to just get used to your first guitar. So that's me, I'm Deco. Thank you very much, and catch you soon. Be seen.